For USCFootball.com, I'm Jack Smith, alongside Connor Morrissette for instant analysis from USC's Wednesday evening practice of Notre Dame week. Rivalry week, Connor. It's USC versus Notre Dame on Saturday in South Bend. And we got to talk to a lot of people today after USC's practice. But first, can you let me know what your practice observations were?
Absolutely, yeah. I can't wait for this game on Saturday. My first time to South Bend. It'll be great hanging with you, Jack. But the thing we got to start with, Makai Lemon, true freshman wide receiver. He was taking reps with the DBs today during practice, during the media viewing period. So he played a lot of DB in high school at Los Alamitos. As a guy who used to cover high school sports, I saw Makai not only play really well at receiver, defensive back at Los Al, but he also did amazing on special teams, and we've seen him return kicks a little bit here at USC. But yeah, so he's in the mix at defensive back. We got to talk tomorrow to Coach Riley during the Zoom to get into, is this just in case of emergency because there have been some issues at corner? Is it a position change? So there's still a few questions with this, but the overall takeaway, Makai Lemon, he might play some corner in the future. We'll see. I don't expect him to play against Notre Dame, but I guess never say never. We'll see.
Yeah, Lincoln did say yesterday that because the corners are injured, because it is an injured secondary that got banged up in the Arizona game, that they are thinking of different creative ways to fill in some of those gaps. He said they've got guys that can play different positions. I think we all thought that meant, safeties that could play corner, or corners that could play safety, or nickels that could play corner. And Chris kind of talked about this yesterday as a possibility because he was ranked as an athlete coming out of high school that maybe Makai Lemon could make that switch. It seems like they're at least thinking about that idea as well. So that's certainly a creative thing. Lincoln Riley didn't mention him by name yesterday, but this definitely fits the billing. Did you have any other big takeaways?
It looks like Traquan Fagans is going to play nickel if he does enter a game. We saw him take one snap against Colorado when Jalen Smith's helmet fell off, and today he was working more with the safeties, even though he's listed as a corner. On the Connor Morrissette USC depth chart, I think I'd have Fagans as the backup nickel, even though it's not officially listed like that. So I thought that was interesting. Chris passed along a couple notes to me. He said the defensive line was working on double teams on the interior, so that was something I wanted to pass along. And then defensive ends were working on setting the edge because Notre Dame has such a good rushing attack.
I might have to ask you about that Connor Morrissette depth chart in the future. But one place that we're kind of unsure about the depth chart moving forward because it got shaken up a bit during the game against Arizona is on the offensive line, specifically that right tackle spot. We got to talk to offensive line coach Josh Henson today about Mason Murphy and Michael Tarquin, where he sees that battle playing out through this week in practice. What were some of your biggest takeaways from what Coach Henson had to say?
Getting people up to speed. Michael Tarquin, he's been the starter at right tackle, but he was benched for Mason Murphy in this game, and Coach Henson talked about how it was just Michael Tarquin was making mistakes that he makes in practice. And Coach Henson, he said, I saw enough of that, and pulled him, said he's really liked what he saw from Mason Murphy. As for what the future of the position looks like, when I asked Coach Henson about who will start against Notre Dame, he said, we got to take the rest of practice this week to figure that out. So it doesn't sound like they have a starter officially named at right tackle yet. It could be Tarquin, but it could be Murphy, who I also thought played well when he came in to back up Tarquin.
Yeah, he also said, they got to get better at pass blocking as a unit. Lincoln Riley said that he thought they were a good run blocking unit against Arizona. Justin Dedich, of course, as we talked about last week, thought they were out-physicaled by Colorado. And Henson said they got to do a better job of using their hands. They need to get back to being a more physical team. And he thinks that could be really important this weekend given the weather in South Bend, which is expected to be cold and rainy. One of maybe those offensive line games. He basically just said, whichever team can punch the best and can, push the other team around the best might have the best chance of winning. So a very important week for the offensive line.
I thought it was interesting, too. He was asked about the potential best five if Tarquin does end up losing his right tackle spot. Could you push him inside because he has experience playing other spots? And Coach Henson talked about nothing set in stone. We always try to figure out the best five. I don't anticipate, if Michael Tarquin loses his job at right tackle, I don't anticipate him going inside unless there's an injury. I think Jarrett Kingston and Emmanuel Pregnon have those spots locked down. But it was interesting to hear him talk about, even though if it looks settled, we always are thinking about the future. We're always thinking about the best five. That, to me, made me feel good about the team because that's important, No one's job is guaranteed. I like that from Coach Henson. He always tells it how it is.
And we also got to talk to Caleb Williams today, as well as a couple other players about the USC-Notre Dame rivalry. Of course, some of these guys played in it last year, some have not yet. What was your overall takeaway from what Caleb had to say?
He said no matter how good USC is or how good Notre Dame is, when these two teams meet, just throw it out the window. It's a clean slate. It's a rivalry game. Who knows what's going to happen because both teams really get up for it. He said it reminded him of the Texas and Oklahoma rivalry, of course. That was the rivalry he played in first in college as the Oklahoma quarterback. He had his big coming out party against Texas. I thought that was really interesting, especially with Notre Dame having two losses, because it could be potentially easy. Not that USC would ever look ahead past Notre Dame. Of course not, but they do have 2 losses. Them losing to Louisville, that's certainly kind of lessen the big game vibe a little bit. I think on Saturday night, though, it's still obviously going to be a really big game with these 2 big rivals going at it, and I expect Notre Dame to give USC all they can handle.
Yeah, Kalen Bullock also mentioned, free safety All-American for USC, that he's excited to go to South Bend. Went there as a freshman during USC's struggle season, that 4-8 year. Beat them last year at home, had an interception on Drew Pine, the quarterback, so he's really excited to play that 3rd installment against Notre Dame and get a chance to go back in there to South Bend. Justin Dietich was asked about how he felt, going back to South Bend after the last time going there, having a poor record. He was like, well, what was our record then? And then someone spoke up and they're like, it wasn't very good. And so, that got a little bit of a chuckle. But so he's excited. What he called his last chapter. He's seen a lot of games in this rivalry, so he gets to go to South Bend one more time. The Trojans haven't won in South Bend since, I believe, 2011, which is when Matt Barkley was the quarterback. You had Tommy Rees, the quarterback, on the other side for Notre Dame, who's now Alabama's offensive coordinator. So it's clearly been a while since the Trojans went into Indiana and beat Notre Dame. So these guys are really excited for a rivalry. One guy who has not played in it is Marshon Lloyd. I think he has played Notre Dame before. I don't remember whether he played in the bowl game for South Carolina last year when they played Notre Dame, but he was asked about the best road environments that he's played in. He mentioned Clemson and Tennessee as those 2 big road atmospheres that he's enjoyed, and I believe he won both of those games as well. So clearly he's excited to play in another big atmosphere. We got to talk to Caleb Williams about a couple other things. I asked him about the crown celebration that he pulled out. Jordan Addison really pulled it out against Notre Dame last year, and it's been a bigger part of his arsenal. What was your takeaway from what he said about that?
Great question by you. He kind of danced around it a little bit, but then at the end, what was the exact wording he used? King vibes or king feel? Like he mentioned the word king, and that's just how he's attacking this season. He wants to be the king of college football. He won the Heisman, of course, last year. He wants more this year, and I think that king celebration, he mentioned the word persona too. He's trying to take on the persona of a king. He wants to be the best, even better than he was a year ago, and that has to do with not only maybe winning another Heisman, but having more team success with USC too.
Yeah, it kind of felt like he was trying not to use the word king. He's like, well, it's like kind of, what the crown represents, just the persona I'm going for. And then it kind of like, he was like, oh, I got to finish this answer. I was like, just king vibes, And it's like he is the king of college football with the way he's played these last 2 seasons. Heisman winner last year, probably the Heisman frontrunner this year with 28 total touchdowns so far through 6 games, which I believe is 11 more than he had at this point last year. So king vibes are clearly out there for Caleb Williams. We saw the crown celebration a couple times for these last couple weeks. And just by the way that, he was acting, I think he's excited to maybe pull it back out against Notre Dame. We'll see whether he switches it up or not. But kind of the last note that we had came from Marshon Lloyd. I asked him about, the ability to break tackles, because as you put out on Twitter the other day, broke 10 tackles against Arizona, most of any running back in college football last week. And he basically just said it's a God-given ability. He was born with it. What did you take away from his answer?
You asked a good follow-up too, Jack. Do you know when you're going up against a would-be tackler what you see on film based on, do you know what they're going to do based on what you've seen on film? And he said, yeah, so that plays a part of it too. But you're right. I mean, the guy's arms are bigger than my thighs. He has a lot of God-given talent. And I asked him as well, has this transfer worked out? Could it have worked out any better? Is this the best possible situation for you so far? And he said, yeah, it is. And I asked that because when I do the PFF numbers, he is number 3 in yards per carry nationally, but he's number 1 in the rushing PFF grade in all of college football. Out of everyone, it's like a 97. It's ridiculously high, 92 or 97. I'm not a math guy, so it's above 90. Either way, it's the best out of everyone. If you're a PFF grade person, he couldn't be doing any better compared to the field. It's amazing what he's been able to do so far, and I think just asking him about breaking tackles like you did, that certainly is a huge part of his game. And he said he always wants to beat the first tackler. There isn't a run where he wants to go down by the first person. And I mean, 10 broken tackles against Arizona. He really did that really well, I thought. Averaging over 7 yards a carry on the year. What a great, great player he's been. Can you think of a transfer who's made more of an impact so far on any side of the ball this year? I think he'd probably be the number 1 pick if you had to redraft him.
I think him or maybe Bear Alexander, but I feel like Lloyd has had, consistent games every single week, and consistency is the word they're looking for. He's been that number 1 choice. That's potentially maybe why he has earned that number 1 running back spot. But Austin Jones did have a good game the other day as well. But you're right, I asked him because he was kind of hinting at it and about, knowing exactly how each defender tackles. Yeah. And so I asked him, like, during the play, can you read the numbers, be able to tell who it is, and then immediately hark back to what you saw on film? And he's basically saying, yeah, he can recognize during the play not only like where the defender is, size, everything like that, but who they are, and then know their individual tackling style, whether they go low, whether they go high, whether they wrap up, what their different weaknesses and strengths as a tackler, so that he can avoid going down, which I thought was really interesting. And this is a guy that was named to the Senior Bowl All-American midseason team today, so clearly having a very good first year at USC, and the Trojans might only have him for a year because he could really shoot up in the NFL draft conversation as running backs tend to do during the year. But that was everything that I've got today from practice. Did you have any other big takeaways before we wrap up?
You mentioned Lloyd playing on Sundays. I was going to say that too. I think he's going to go to the NFL after this year, and how could he not have success based on what we've seen so far? I hope my New England Patriots draft him, because they need a lot of help right now. That would be my final thought. What
about Caleb Williams on the Patriots? Would that be a good fit?
Get both of them. That would be even better. One loss right now for the Patriots. They are terrible. I hope they tank the rest of the way and get both guys.
That's all we've got for you guys from practice today. We won't be heading exactly to Foxborough, but we're going out to South Bend. We're thinking of doing a meetup, so if you're a part of the message boards, make sure you're looking there to see where we do this meetup. It'll be Friday night before the game. You can also check on Twitter at Inside Troy. Ryan Abraham will, I'm sure, post where we're going to be meeting up, but it'll be a fun game, 4:30 p.m. Pacific time, prime time, USC Notre Dame, as it should be. It's going to be rainy, it's going to be cold, which I think just makes for some good college football, and we'll see whether the Trojans can start to propel themselves into, a better trajectory through this last part of the season where they get to play all these ranked teams.
Did I say one loss? I meant one win for the Patriots. They're terrible.
I think we all knew that you meant that they sucked. But anyways, that's all we've got for you guys today. Make sure you're checking out all of our videos here on YouTube, all the interviews from today, Caleb Williams, Josh Henson, all of those names that we talked about, and make sure you're going to the website, uscfootball.com, to check out all the articles posted from today, as well as the War Room that'll go up later this week. But anyways, for Connor Morrissette, I'm Jack Smith. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.